Rachel,
Yes.
finally, I get here to see you in person.
Yes,
it's
this
really
is fun.
glad. Yeah, I was one of your students, and I took your classes, and I got great impression because your way of teaching is so different from what actually most teachers are using, and I learn a lot from you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I want to share my experience and your story with Korean English learners.
Great.
So please introduce yourself first,
Okay.
and let's talk about your story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. My name is Rachel Smith, and I have a YouTube channel called Rachel's English, which just passed its 6th year. And from that YouTube channel has grown many more materials. The courses you talked about. I have some audio stuff. I'm working on a book right now. So the YouTube channel is sort of where it all started, but it's grown into much more than that. Well, the first time I taught English, I was studying abroad, and I was a sophomore in college, and so I had a work assignment, and it was teaching English. So I didn't have any training. You know, they just sort of threw you in, and it was in the Dominican Republic, and I had a class of students who ranged in age from 5 to 15. You know, I had no photocopy machine, I had no textbook to use, so it was an interesting experience. It was sort of more about fun than real rigid learning. But definitely, I think especially the older students learned something there. And then when I was in graduate school, I supported myself by teaching English as a second language. And that was through a Korean company. So all of my students were Korean, and it was just one-on-one or one-on-two learning. And that was great. It was very conversational. Before we met, they would go work on a software program, and then when we met, we had specific things that we talked about that would build on what they learned in their session before. So, but it was always a part-time thing, not really a career focus. And I went on to graduate school where I studied opera performance, and I studied the pronunciation of various languages, and I learned a lot about my voice and my body and how they relate to each other, and just became very interested in that. So I pursued that professionally, and I was living in Germany when a Turkish friend of mine was trying to sound more American because of, you know, all of the Hollywood movies and all of this. And so I was giving him some tips, and he said, "Oh, that was really good. You're really good at that." And I thought, oh, maybe that could be something, because I sort of was wanting to build some sort of website project. I had been a computer science major in college, but since I was doing opera, I wasn't doing much programming, and I wanted to keep that skill sharp. And I thought maybe this can be my project, some spoken English stuff. So it wasn't out of seeing a need for pronunciation materials or anything. It was just, it actually seemed really fun to me. And the benefit to doing it in Germany, often when I want to learn something, I'll go to the public library and check out everything I can. So the public library there wasn't too helpful because my German was not great. So I had to just experiment with myself, really think about, how do I say this, what's happening, what muscles are moving. And I think that was a very good base, because I started looking at myself and my own experience rather than looking at a book or a resource or what someone else was saying, how it should be. And I think because of my opera singing background, I had the sensitivity to know what was happening, and then also I was able to describe it. I had the vocabulary to describe it. So that's how it started. And then from there, it's grown. Yeah, the Rachel's English started totally as a hobby. And actually, when I came back from Germany, it was 2008 when the economy tanked and I lost my job. Perfect timing to just devote more time to this project. And so I did that, but as soon as I got another job, I took it, and I didn't work full-time on Rachel's English until like 3 years after that. So it was a hobby for a couple years. But it was an interesting hobby because I was putting something out there for other people to see and respond to. And very slowly people started responding to it. And so, yeah, it was always an intriguing part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually there were two parts. There was the response from people, but then there was also, I felt like I was exploring my voice in a completely new way, and it was really fun for me to do so much noticing how, like you said, you don't think about how you speak Korean. I didn't think about how I spoke English, and then as I started dissecting it, it just got really interesting to me. So it was interesting in and of itself, but then also I was kind of in conversation with people from all over the world that I never would have met, and that was very interesting. Yeah, there was a bigger tipping point. It happened sort of around the time when I decided to quit my job and do it full time. And then it also happened actually when I met somebody in New York who knew a lot about YouTube, the platform, and he started running some advertisements. So he was paying to promote some of my videos. And so those two things happening kind of close together is what really is where the bigger slope up happened.
When you got back and like when you're doing it more, look up a lot of
I did, yes.
And meet with people? Or
I didn't really meet with people, but I did get almost every book I could find in New York Public Library about it and skim, or there was one that I thought was really great and I started recommending it to people. And so I got little ideas here and there from what other people were saying, and you know, I learned the right words to use to describe things and stuff because there were some things that I just didn't know because I had never studied.
Right.
And so, you know, I remember reading in this one book talking about how voiced versus unvoiced consonant, unvoiced is strong and voiced is weak, and I thought, I don't even get that. What does that mean? And then I started realizing at the end of a word, an unvoiced consonant is much stronger, and a voiced consonant is just very weak and actually sounds like a weak version of the voiced. Anyway, when I realized that's what was happening, I was like, oh, that's what that meant. And then it sort of helped me explain it to students. So I've definitely looked at some resources, but not for a while. And I don't want to get too much into that. What does research say? I want more to base what I'm doing on my experience, both from understanding how I use language and also from studying how my students are studying. Because I think there's enough other resources like that out there that are academic. So let them do that. Okay, so right now, the most recent class I taught was just before the summer. And it was using like a learning management system kind of thing. It was called Whiz IQ. And so what I did is I set up, it was a 5-week-long course on vowels. And I set up materials each week for the students to look at and videos to see before the sessions. And then I had live lectures. And so the lectures sort of, maybe the lecture part was 15 minutes, and then maybe 45 minutes to an hour would be unmuting students, working with them, and then talking about what's not quite right and how to fix it. So people got, you know, maybe a minute to 3 minutes of personal coaching, and then everyone else got to see that personal coaching. And I think that even just a minute of the right kind of coaching can actually turn somebody around a corner and make a significant difference if they're then able to reproduce that and drill it. And so the videos from the lectures, the students could watch anytime. So they could go back and they could watch that 1 minute over and over and over. So, and I gave each lecture 3 times to help with other people's schedulings and time zones. If I was to do it again, I might only do it twice because it was getting a little intense. But and then there were drill materials that followed up. So let's say we covered the ah vowel. Then after the lectures, they would have a packet that would have a I don't know. It depends. Maybe 1 to 4 audio files with a PDF that would be lists of words with that sound, and they could listen and repeat. It would just be word parts, maybe, to even break it down to something simpler. Minimal pairs, comparing that vowel with a vowel that is often interchanged. Yeah, and so I really would tell my students, I unfortunately can't really fix your accent. You have to fix it. I can help you turn the corner. But if you're going to keep going down there, it's all on you. It's all on your repetition, and you're working with that. And you're drilling it because you have to retrain your muscles and your ear to respond and know what's going on. But so that was the most recent class I did. I've done others where there was a much more interactive classroom type feel, and then I might see each student privately for 20 minutes, or they turn in an assignment and I spend 20 minutes giving them feedback, either video or audio. Sometimes I will even edit in what I'm hearing from them and then do it myself. So I'm experimenting with different formats and what's better. I've also done private lessons, an hour long once a week or whatever. Yeah.